The civil grand jury is a unit, and no one person, foreperson, or anyone can pursue their own idea to the exclusion or without the tempering force of the others. I'm not saying people don't come on with something they really want to push, but I've not seen it be successful in the 2 years that I've served. At the time you start, you don't know what topics you will end up investigating. The topics are chosen by the current grand jury, and our first go around, we probably had 50, maybe 60 possible topics up on the board. Then we winnowed it down and winnowed it down to where we got to the topics we would look at. The first one would be accountability in city government. You know, how does the city function, and in what ways does the city perhaps embrace business concepts in analyzing and evaluating its programs? We felt that if you made a prediction that something was going to not cost something or something would cost something in ordinary business, you would follow up and you would analyze and make sure that you were on target. And if you weren't on target, then you'd go back and revise your analysis or your system of analysis to get better predictions. We felt that a business practice would be that if a department is required to file these reports, there'd be follow-up. They'd be reviewed, they'd be analyzed, and someone would do something about them. Another topic was the topic of homelessness. Recognizing that a significant amount of the budget goes to the homelessness program. How is the money being spent, and is it being effective? The city has made great strides in finding homes for the homeless. However, the perception of homelessness by the citizens is that it's not necessarily being solved. Drinking in the parks, drug use in the parks, panhandling in downtown tourist areas, sleeping in neighborhoods, those sorts of problems, which the citizens are still seeing, and makes them wonder, well, what are we doing for the homeless? Are we being successful? So our recommendation was that the city should not only continue to provide homes, but really needs to address this other issue, which is the quality of life issue for both the homeless and for other residents of the city. Some people are suspicious of the election process and are questioning whether it's fair, is it open, is it accurate? And so we went to the Department of Elections and said, you know, we'd really like to observe as much as we can of the election process. It was a time-consuming report because we observed 4 elections in our term, but the problems were fairly clear-cut. The Elections Department needs a permanent home, particularly for its operations side. They took out a 4-year lease, I believe, at Pier 48, and that did ameliorate the operations side for a while. But that's a short-term lease, and so the city should be committed to finding a permanent home for the Department of Elections operations. And the last one, probably the report that interested me or got to me the most, I guess, it really touched me most, was the schools report. The admission process in San Francisco School District is a unique, only in San Francisco admission process, and one that I find personally very complicated and unduly so. We recommended that they seriously consider a lottery system that would assign students to a school, and at the same time giving families and students the opportunity to go to a different school if they wanted to. We recommended that they look to redefining the attendance area and perhaps trying to have students attend schools closer to home or within their attendance area. Some department managers will say thank you. Thank you for bringing this to light. Thank you for identifying the problem. Thank you for your work. Others would wish that we had not asked the questions, maybe don't appreciate the way the report is worded, disagree that the problem identified is a problem, One of the things a civil grand jury has to be careful about is that you maintain an objectivity and that your report be factually based and that your recommendations are based on findings and not just something you feel or think. It is reviewed by the presiding judge, and he signs an order granting that it can be issued. The mayor's office is required to make responses within 60 days, and then the Board of Supervisors is responsible for responding in 90 days. And in the past 2 years, what they've undertaken is to have hearings where the reports are reviewed. The grand jury has an opportunity to testify or make comments. The departments are invited to come and make comments where they disagree, where they agree, and then the public can comment. If a person would like to learn more about the reports, they can go to the SFGov website, go to courts, and then under courts you will find civil grand jury. The advice I would give to anyone who is trying to understand the report and maybe is short on time, I would go to the report, and each one has an executive summary in which we tried to explain what we were looking at, what we found, and then I would go towards the back of the report and I would read the summary of the findings, and then I would read the recommendations. And if you read those 3 sections, you would have a fairly good idea of what we were looking at, what we found, and what we recommended.